Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, the latest Texans draft visits. Who have the Texans been meeting with? We're almost a week away from the 2024 NFL Draft. I'll let you know who that is. Also, John Metchie. Is he the fourth guy in this wide receiver depth chart? I'll let you know what C.J. Stroud had to say about the second-year wide receiver now. And Kenyon Green, the former first-round pick out of Texas A&M. Where does he fit with this Texans offensive line? Will he start for this Texans offensive line? That coming on the back half of today's show. But first, before we get started, the new jerseys, we're a week away from seeing the new Texans kits. The new jerseys are coming out. They're going to be dropping next Tuesday. I'll have you updated here on the channel. I'll be dropping the photos on our community page. But with the new jerseys coming, it's kind of like signifying the end of an era. And producer Smitty, I almost called you Rolly. Producer Smitty, the only thing that's going through my mind is, like whenever you're graduating and it's like, and then the end of night, I hope you had the time of your life. It's an end of an era. So let me know, with these new Texans jerseys coming, what was your favorite moment as a Texans fan with these old jerseys? We probably won't see them for a couple of years, but go down in the comment section and let me know your favorite moment as a Texans fan as we get ready for the new jerseys next week. Let's get right into today's show with Texans draft visits. Michael Hall Jr. meeting with the Texans this week. This wasn't a surprise. This was reported a couple of weeks ago that the Texans were going to meet with Hall, the former teammate of C.J. Stroud. The Texans really like his versatility, his spring on the interior of the defensive line. He is a very athletic defensive lineman. Could be an option in round 2, round 3 for the Texans if they're looking that direction. Another guy who they met with this week, Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Kentucky, 4.5 sacks last year, 57 tackles, has been rising up draft boards steadily. Could be a round 2 guy. I don't think the Texans go edge that early, but if he gets into round 3, round 4, I could definitely see the Texans taking a swing on Kneeland. Another guy the Texans have met with is Ennis Rakestraw Jr., a very popular name around the Houston Texans there at pick 42. Was at one time seen as like a first-round prospect in this year's draft class, but Rakestraw could be a guy that's there at 42 that the Texans could steal, a first-round talent in some people's eyes that the Texans could get in round 2. The Texans are meeting with him. And then Roman Wilson, interested enough, he's been another guy who's been thrown around a lot around Texans draft rumors, but came out this week, was talking with a Texans reporter and said, you know what? I would absolutely love to play with C.J. Stroud. I played against him multiple times. Almost was talking to him whenever he was thinking about coming to Michigan, whenever he was going through his recruiting process. But, I mean, obviously, who wouldn't want to play with C.J. Stroud right now coming out in this rookie draft class? I know a lot of wide receivers are like, damn, I wish I could play with C.J. Stroud. So nothing new there, but with all the draft coverage that's happening right now, with all the draft rumors, with all the lead up to the 2024 NFL Draft, we are your one-stop shop. We are your place for Texans draft rumors. Get the latest draft coverage. We're going to be bringing out every single pick that the Texans make this season. So if you want updated analysis, updated news and rumors around this Texans team heading into the draft, this is your place to be. Go down and hit that sub button. We got you covered on free Texans content on the daily. Go down and hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV. Now, talking of Roman Wilson, I don't even know if the Texans are going to draft a wide receiver this year. They traded for Stefon Diggs. They have Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They have a couple other guys on this depth chart that could make an impact, a la one John Metchie. We saw the viral video go out of him, Stefon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Sketch. What's up, brother? Hanging out all together with C.J. Stroud. But Stroud had a lot of good things to say about John Metchie in his press conference yesterday. This is what our QB1 had to say on John Metchie. He has a ton of value, a huge impact that I think he will bring this season. I think last year was good to get his feet back in the water coming off an injury than something so traumatic like being sick how he was. His mindset is that he's just ready to come back and ball. Not only is he a great football player, but he's also a great person, and I wouldn't want anybody else other than those guys in the locker room. Metchie is looking amazing. Everything that he will put on the field will be no surprise. But I think everybody in this room knows how special he can be, and he'll put that on the field. I mean, there's a reason why he was a second-round pick out of the University of Alabama. He was an absolutely electric player coming out whenever the Texans ended up taking him. I mean, look at these stats from 2021. 96 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 1,142, 11.9 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns on the season. John Metchie was an absolute beast for the Crimson Tide, and that's why the Texans made him a second-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. John Metchie was electric, obviously battled leukemia. He's an absolute warrior. But with all that being said, will Metchie be the wide receiver for this season? A lot of chatter, a lot of rumors about the Texans possibly drafting a guy. They also have Xavier Hutchinson. They re-signed Noah Brown. They still have Robert Woods somehow on the roster. I mean, as we look at this Texans depth chart, where does he fit in? I mean, you'd hope that Metchie would be your wide receiver 4, but will that come to fruition? I'm not sure. We'll have to see what happens after the 2024 NFL Draft during OTAs in the preseason. Now, coming up next, will Kenyon Green start over Juice Scruggs, or what combination of offensive line is DeMeco Ryans and this staff looking at doing this season for the Houston Texans, and could they end up drafting an offensive lineman early in the draft? I'll get to that in just a moment, but first, gotta show some love to our sponsors over at Fanatics. I told you earlier in the show, end of an era. You know, getting new jerseys next week, but that means one thing, and a frugal shopper like myself knows what that means. Great sale items over at Fanatics. All these Texans items are on sale right now when you go to chatsports.com/Texans sale. What better time to get great deals on some of these items, like these tumblers? They have the quarter zips. They have the decals and stuff. Obviously, I know the Texans are getting new jerseys. I don't think they're getting a new logo per se, but I think all these options could be good options. And hey, even if they do get new gear, it's throwback gear, and it's going to be on sale. Go check it out today, chatsports.com/Texans sale. If anything, just go check it out. Do a little window shopping. See what they have to offer. Hey, you might find a deal that you can't pass up. It'll be in the comment section and the description of today's video. Chatsports.com/Texans sale to go check out our friends over at Fanatics with their great deals that they have coming up the pipeline. I know Texans new jerseys coming out next week, so check out what they have in store for you. Now, Kenyon Green, the former first-round pick out of Texas A&M. He was out all of last season with a shoulder injury. Could he start, though, for the Texans this season? DeMeco Ryans hinted at, a couple guys coming back from injury. He said Tank Dell progressing excellently. He said Tytus Howard looking pretty good in his road to recovery after battling multiple injuries last year. And he also talked about Kenyon Green, how, he hasn't really been healthy since he's entered the league. And what will he look like going into this season for the Houston Texans? This is where I have the depth chart at right now. Not sure that's how it stays, but I have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, obviously, Shaq Mason at right guard. Those are your two mainstays. Then you have Tytus Howard at right tackle. Right now I have Juice Scruggs at center and Kenyon Green at left guard, but I don't know, because Green was absolutely horrendous his rookie season. And now, granted, he was a rookie in the NFL at offensive line, so it's not easy transitioning from college to the NFL, but he was awful in 2022. One of the worst graded offensive linemen in the entire National Football League by PFF. And then he was not looking good in the preseason this past season. I can tell you that. That Saints game that he got injured, he got worked multiple times by Brian Bresee on the interior. So the 6'4", 323-pound offensive lineman from Texas A&M, will he start this next season for the Houston Texans? Now, he was one of those guys who was drafted in the first round with the picks that we got from the Deshaun Watson trade, but that was the prior regime. You got to remember, DeMeco Ryans, he didn't draft this guy. He wasn't a DeMeco Ryans guy who he planned on having on his team in the future. So, Green, could he start? And also, where does Juice Scruggs play? He played mostly at guard last season, but does he move back to his primary position of center, or do they keep him at guard, put Jarrett Patterson at center? All these are questions that I think the Texans could answer after the draft and going into OTAs, especially if they draft the interior offensive lineman early in this year's draft. They've already met with guys like Christian Mahogany. Could they get one of those guys? Mel Kiper, Field Yates had the Texans taking not them, but multiple draft mocks have had the Texans taking Jackson Powers-Johnson. They've had Jackson Powers-Johnson falling to the second round. In the Mel Kiper Field Yates one, they had Jackson Powers-Johnson going to the Raiders in round 2. So could he be there for the Texans at pick 42? And if so, do the Texans pull the trigger on my number 1 center in this year's 2024 NFL draft? What say you, though? Should the Texans draft an O-lineman in the early rounds of this year's draft? Type D for draft, type P for pass. Let me know what you have to say down in the comments section. If one of those top guys falls, I really feel like it's going to be defense unless they absolutely have an offensive lineman that they love in the second round. Then I could see them maybe going O-line early in this year's draft. That's all I have for you on today's show. If you haven't already, give me a follow on Twitter at Jeremy Chugs for the latest Texans news and rumors, the dankest memes around the internet. And as always, go down and hit that sub button. We're trying to get to 13,000 subs. Help us do that right now by going to youtube.com/TexansTV for the latest Texans news and rumors.